Hi guys, this is Raquel with Paintsandglitter.com. I just wanted to come to you with a project share and also a short tutorial if I can manage. I have been quite sick, so my voice is not all there, but I just wanted to show you a quick video of this tag that I showed on Facebook on some of the pages yesterday. I realized that not everyone who watches my videos may get to see it, so even though I did post it on Instagram, I figured I should show it here as well. So this is a Christmas tag, and what I was trying to do, to believe it or not, was I was challenging myself to use my Tim Holtz dies that I have that have holiday phrases, I believe it's called, or something like that, and they come like this. I'm not sponsored by any dye company, so I'm not going to mention the rest of what I used. I just wanted to show you guys. This is one of the Tim Holtz ones for, I think, see, I don't even know. It might be Spellbinders, but I don't think so. It might, and I can't remember. So anyway, that's not important. I just wanted to show you, I wanted to use the little word there. The phrase said tidings, and so I thought, you know, how could I incorporate that into something that I make that's girly and sweet without it looking masculine? So I thought, okay, obviously pink and glitter would probably do the trick. So what I did was that I'm going to show you how I went about it. I started off with a cardboard base, and that's what this is here, and I have you know, a collection of just acrylic paints. Not all of them are high grade. Some of them are just these inexpensive ones that you can get at Walmart or other stores, and I think these are about 50 cents a piece, something like that. So I wanted to use this color Cloudless. Light blue is one of my favorite colors, so I thought I would start there. So I literally just took the piece of cardboard and I painted it with that. And then I went ahead and cut out let's see here, I don't have the die, I think I tossed it, but I cut out a die with a bunch of snowflakes in the background, and then I went ahead and used my Ranger paste, texture paste, and I put it on. If you've never used texture paste, it is, you know, what it's called, it's just a paste, and what I do is I take my Cricut spatula, I have a couple of these, and you can use a butter knife, whatever you like, and then you just scoop it out of the little pot and spread it, and then whatever has been cut out will be your pattern. So if you could see back there in the background, that's what that was. And then what I did was I sprinkled white glitter, that is a matte glitter, on top of that. So that was the foundation. Excuse me. And then on the edges, I don't know if you can tell, but there's a little bit of glitter there on those edges, and that's probably very insignificant at this point because of everything I put on top. But just to let you know, I used extreme glitter on that. If you like the look of glitter on your projects, but you don't like glitter in and of itself, my channel is called Paints and Glitter, guys. I know a bit about the subject, so I figured, you know what, let me be a resource to you. This is probably going to be your best bet. It is so inexpensive. You don't have to inhale it because it's not a spray. So if you're sensitive to scents, as I am, then this is the way to go. Excuse me. You can use it, and I apologize for coughing. You can use it with any color. Okay, so no matter the project, and I'm willing to say even no matter the medium. If you want a light glitter coverage, this is a really good resource there, okay? And no, you don't have to go crazy spending money to get a shiny look on your projects. So anyway, on this, you know what, let me show you another example, because I'm realizing that you might not see it there. This background here, you see how shiny that is? That's all I put on there. I started it off with this blue, which is a matte blue, and then on top of it I did that glitter color. Okay, now this was in, you know, in hindsight, I should have done the entire background of this tag with that, but I forgot, which is why I only have it on the edges. But on this one, you can see that's actually the look that I was going for. I just completely forgot. And then here's the what the texture paste looks like once it's dry, okay, with all of that glitter on top. Now, this particular glitter, I have no idea where I got it. It's not the best. So once you tap this, it does fall off. So I don't recommend just any old, you know, glitter. But the texture paste can be left alone without it, just to let you know. That was just one option. And then the rest of this was, this here, as you can see, is vellum. So I did glue my little letters on top of that vellum, and then on the blue chipboard. The rest of these are different snowflake dies. The little heart die there with a bow, I put the snowflake on top of it. And this edging here that you see in pink is another die. These two snowflakes layered on top of one another are dies. And then the little pink snowflakes that you see are a separate die set. This snowflake up here, which is kind of difficult to tell, but because it was so dainty and delicate and it didn't have a center once it cut out, because the center is actually this here. Okay, so this is the center of this snowflake. And I know it's really busy, so it's kind of hard to tell, but what I did was that I cut out a circle from the pink, and I glued the inner part of that snowflake onto it, then glued that tiny little snowflake in the center, because I found out that it matched. So this is the same snowflake, only over here is in the blue, and then in the center I put a little silver colored sequin, and then all of the little drops are Ranger liquid pearls that I added throughout to give it more texture. Here's another snowflake. Down here I have a trim that I found at Michael's from the Celebrate It brand. They came like this, so that's what I incorporated there, because it has this just a beautiful silver throughout. And I also made the bow with that. That bow, let me just tell you, it was the hardest thing to apply to my project, and I ended up excuse me, I ended up using, I think it was E6000 to glue that bow on there, but it finished it off as I wanted it. And of course my little image here is a gorgeous girl, and I'm fascinated by these stamps, of course. I colored her in using watercolors for her face as the base, and then I finished her off entirely with Prismacolor pencils, including the hair and everything. And yeah, I think that covers all of that. There's also white paper in the background, okay, that I distressed on the edges. And then the little ribbon loop here that I kept quite simple. To start off showing you the image that I'm going to be using, she's the same little girl. Let me see if I can, I'm sorry for moving the camera, but my lighting is not so great. So here she is. I colored her a bit darker because I like to change the skin tones, and that's why I like these stamps. It's not just the graphics. I am very much into graphic arts, but I don't know if this would fall into that category. I don't think it would, but I love the detail in the hair. But I like the fact that I can make them any culture or any ethnicity or any background. That's what I love about these stamps. So I don't always make them look Caucasian or light-skinned or whatever. So started her off with the green and red, and then of course a splash of blue. And then on this one here, I kept her clock. And what you see there, that all of that shimmer is actually a Nouveau glitter pen in red glitter. Her background, I also stamped, if you see that shine, that's been embossed, and I used oxide inks. So the blue is actually an oxide ink, and I can't remember which color, but it's a light blue. and then I embossed it with different embossing powders that I have. I like to mix and match the powders as well, because I like the surprise of a new result. So the other ones are just stamped in white with the same embossing powder that I use with the blue, and then I just cut it all out with one die cut to have that border, and I think it fit perfectly. So I'm going to continue on, and here's my chipboard. Because of the size of this particular die cut, I decided to cut the chipboard a bit bigger. So this tag's going to be 4 inches by 6.5. And I'm going to begin by using my corner chomper. And this one's going to be, I think I'm going to use the 1/4 inch edge, which is the smaller edge. I'm recycling material. That's another thing I like to do. So this is just old packaging that, you know, we all get things in the mail, and I like to save this nice sturdy chipboard for my projects, so that way I can somehow justify it in my head that I'm saving money. So for this one, I think I'm going to go with, let's see here. I should have decided this beforehand, and I didn't. So I'm just looking at my turnabout here, my Lazy Susan that I have. I'm thinking that I'm going to probably have to go with the same color. Oh, no, I don't. Here's my white. So I think I'm going to mix white and blue. This is the same brand, I think, is it? Yes, it is. Apple Barrel. They're, again, they're very inexpensive paints. The white I always buy in the larger bottle if I can. And just going to use one of my, what is her name? Jane Davenport brushes. I always keep a distilled water on my table. So again, this is just acrylic paint, and I'm this paint is not in the best condition, so because it's old, it's kind of goopy and drying out. But this is the background to my piece, so I'm not too worried about that, because any texture is just kind of going to add to the look. And this is really bad paint, so just so you know, if you ever buy a bottle of paint and it comes from the store looking like that, let me see if I can get better lighting here. If it ever comes out like that directly from the store, please return it. Because this is really bad. But at this point, there it is. See, now the back is not even in very good condition, and I am scooping up whatever is there. This is my, you know, stress-free way of crafting. I don't really follow many rules. I just sometimes make it up as I go along, and that's what's fun about it for me. And especially if I'm not feeling well and I have to stop and come back. The only things that, of course, I live by are the fact that I do want to take care of my brushes, pencils, things like that. So my brush will be cleaned immediately. But this glass mat is a lifesaver because you can easily clean it. And that's awesome. Now you see how that stuck? It created a texture on there, and I actually quite like that. So, because it adds to the shabbiness of it, and most of it's going to be covered anyway. So that's as much white paint. You see how it peeled off because it was wet? So that's enough for that. What I'll do now is that this is my work desk. So it doesn't have to be perfect because I'm not going to get in trouble. So I'm now going to go in with the blue. And again, this is the same blue that I used with the other tag. This one I'm going to be a little bit lighter with, only because let's see here. I might top it off with some white, or I might just do the paste. I think I'll do that. So again, it's kind of haphazardly painted. That's exactly how I did the other one, where I do the vertical and then horizontal. You know, don't worry too much about getting my fingers painted either. Because the edges are going to be more visible, I will be covering the back with a piece of paper with my information, but because the edges will be more visible, that's where I want most of the paint. And then again, the centers I'm not going to worry about too much. And I know this is looking crazy right now, but there is a method to my madness. I'm not completely insane. I'm now going to dry this with my heat gun, and I'll be back. Okay guys, so I decided to do the embossing off camera for a couple of reasons. Number one, the embossing powder, the ink that I was using was not wet enough, so I went ahead and changed to Perfect Medium by Ranger and put that just on top of a piece of white cardstock. I covered as much as possible with it, and then sprinkled my Recollections embossing powder that has the glitter in it on that piece of paper, and heat embossed it. So now I have this entire surface here. I'm going to cut out as many of the die cuts that I want to be using for this project with this paper. So I'm going to do that with my Platinum 6 Spellbinders machine, and that'll be my next step. I'm just going to create my sandwich, and sorry for the noise. I'm going to run it through the machine, and I'll use a small piece of washi tape to hold that down so that it doesn't move around on me. And the paper is a little bit curled up because of the amount of heat embossing that I did on it, but thankfully, because this machine has really good pressure, I will be able to cut out my die cuts. And what I do is I also run it through with the embossing mat. Now I do have to warn you that the embossing with that particular powder is extremely messy, so I did clean up before turning the camera back on, and even though I did clean up, I still have glitter and embossing powder just about everywhere. So beware, this is not a neat project, and you will be covered in glitter by the end of it. So for now, what I can do is I have this little mat here, and I just let it collect all of those little pieces that fall out, and I use my brush. And this is how I save those little miniature stars that were on my other tag also, which it would be crazy to try to collect those all over the place. But this tool and this mat make it possible because they all fall here, and this creates sort of a sticky surface where they all land. And then I just use my Cricut tool here that will help me push the die cut right out. And I've saved myself a step of trying to heat emboss this once it's all cut out, which would make it almost physically impossible because it's so dainty. So that is the reason why I do it like this. And it's just a way that it just works for me. Doesn't mean that one way is right and the other wrong. But here's the result. Okay, so now I have all of my elements cut out, and I just wanted to show you here, this is the largest of the snowflakes that I will be using for this, just as I did for the previous tag. And this is what I was explaining before regarding the fact that this snowflake has a very open center, so I did cut out with a circle punch that I have here. A circle with the same embossed paper. So I'm going to be flipping that snowflake upside down to make sure that I apply adhesive just to the little areas that will be touching that small circle. I am using glitter glue from May, and she does have her own web page as well as YouTube channel. Most crafters know who May is, so that is a fast drying adhesive that dries clear. So I'm just going to gently press that center of that snowflake onto that small piece of paper. And the reason I selected that was to make sure that not only I could keep that snowflake together, but that it would also still make it look quite airy without having a heavy piece of paper back there that would take away from the design of the snowflake and still allow me to adhere that to my tag. So I'm just going around a bit, and I apologize for the glare of the light there. I'm just going around making sure that the distance between the different pieces there are pretty close to one another without, so that the snowflake doesn't lose shape. And now I'm going to be reaching over to another. This is one of the smallest snowflakes that I cut out. It came in a just a kit with 2 small snowflakes. I'll be putting that one in the center, and that is the one that I noticed before almost corresponded with the cuts of that larger one, which was kind of interesting because they didn't come together, but I just placed it in the center to complete the look there. Instead of just having that plain circle, I just thought that that looked, made it look more finished. So I'm just making sure that it's centered and applying light pressure so that I don't distort what I've already glued together. And as you see, in just like 2 seconds, the entire thing is dry. So that is ready, and not all of it is embossed because of the way that I cut it out of the paper, but because I'm going for that shabby chic look, I do like the way that that looks so far. This is my sentiment for this tag. It does say believe. It is a Christmas tag, so I got that from a collection of stamps that I have from Recollections. I believe it's called Noel or Christmas Noel, and then I'm backing it up with another piece that I did apply Distress Oxide ink to very gently to make sure that all of my colors corresponded, and I'll be adhering those 2 together with some same adhesive. It wouldn't really matter at this point, and I'm just pointing out that I did apply very light shading of what was left on the tool, the ink that was left on the tool, I'm sorry. I just went around the edges of that die cut with the phrase, and that was embossed with the same color blue ink that I used throughout, which was the Distress Oxide ink. Here I'm applying more adhesive to another group of snowflakes, and I would like to work this way so that way I get my embellishments ready before I go to apply them to my piece, and also it helps me understand what has enough contrast and what doesn't. Although I did make a small mistake on this, and I'll show you later what it was. I had tried to pre-plan the placement as much as possible. Here I'm grabbing the 2 die cuts that are, one is the small heart. It's almost like a little pendant there. It has a bow on top, and the other is the center of that large snowflake. And I'm so sorry for the glare of light on my videos here. I'm not quite understanding why that's happening so frequently, but I'll try to make sure that I fix that going forward. But that big snowflake there, that's where that center came from. And then I'm just applying it up top there to that little heart. I'm going to bring over the tag that I'll be working on here. And now I'm going to be layering those pieces that will be on the sides with the border pieces there. And what I've done is that I want to line up that right side-handed piece there toward the top of the tag or the die cut there, and I'm lining it up with the edge and then also following the edge of one of the snowflakes there. And on the bottom, as you can see there, the little pieces of those snowflakes just they cover the edge of that other border piece perfectly. And I will do the same type of alignment on the other side with the border of that edge going farther up than I did on the right hand side. So the right hand side's lower than the left. That was the point I was trying to make there. So as you can see, I just bring along a bead of glue on the edge, very little. Line up the snowflake on the top there, and then use that as my guide to apply the rest. And then gently and with just a small amount of pressure there. Even though that is an embossed piece of paper, that glue works perfectly to make sure that it does adhere permanently. And it isn't messy, so I do like that. So now that piece is complete, and I'll be able to use it and layer it on my foundation chipboard that I've painted. I decided against applying the paste on this one, but I will be using the same elements throughout. So I'm just deciding on the alignment here to make sure that it is centered and that I don't lose that whimsy of having those little wispy sides. I did decide to use the Scotch glue stick from Scotch Create, and it is a permanent adhesive. The reason I went with this on this piece was because it has less water in it. It's more of a waxy type adhesive, but it allows me to get into the grooves of those shaped die cuts, and it won't warp my foundation piece with any more liquid, and it won't warp the paper either, so it's a great adhesive to use for applying paper onto chipboard. Excuse me. So if you're ever covering a book or anything like that and using either fabric or paper onto chipboard, I highly recommend that permanent adhesive in the form of a stick. So I do have several types of adhesives that I use depending on what I'm doing. Now that I have that piece onto my foundation, I know that it's not going to be shifting or moving anywhere. I'll be using these little branches that I cut out just of regular, that 110-pound cardstock, and I decided those would be the embellishments I would use on the top of my tag. And I'm hoping that you guys will be able to see that in a minute. I'm just lining it up with the sentiment as well. And I'm hoping, hadn't seen this before, so there we go. I was hoping that you would be able to see part of it. And I'll just apply a very small amount of glue there to make sure it does stay nice and neat. And those little branches would also have looked pretty if they were embossed, but I didn't want every single piece of my tag to have glitter and embossing on it. I mean, it's nice to sort of ground it with pieces that are just matte in color, and I love working with white. So now I'm placing my sentiment that I had layered, and I'm just going to make sure that that's also centered. And of course the liquid glue allows me to move it around without destroying my papers. So here what I will be doing is that I grabbed the piece of ribbon from that Celebrated collection that I wanted to use as my hanger. And I want to make sure that that's hidden behind that sentiment label. So I'm applying adhesive to it. First I'm going to measure it out and make sure it's long enough. Excuse me. And I will be using dry adhesive for the ribbon. I discovered that with that particular type of ribbon, for some reason, none of my wet adhesives worked. So I used double-sided tape on that. And you'll see in a moment how I form the loop with the adhesive in the center. And there it is. Just made that loop first, and then I also have that dry adhesive on the outside. And I'll be applying that on both sides of that ribbon. And I apologize for my voice. I was hoping that it would be better today, but as the day went through, I just kept losing it, and I still am. So now I'm just applying that ribbon first. And you can tell, I mean, the back of that I'm going to be covering with white paper, so it was pretty shabby, I guess. I'll remove the adhesive there, and now I'll be able to cover that unfinished ribbon with a pretty piece of paper or embellishment without it being too bulky and without it looking as if, you know, there's just a tattered piece of ribbon on my project here. And now I'll be placing the snowflakes, and here I should have done a little bit better planning, but I just started placing them on the sides of my project there, with that medium-sized snowflake on the side, and then toward the bottom I decided to group the smaller snowflakes. I did layer these two, one on top of the other. And if you watch one of my other videos, I do have another tag that I recently made where I use Martha Stewart punches that also have snowflakes. Here I'm trying to cover up that sentiment, or logo I should say. It does say Santoro London or Gorgeous or something like that. And that's where I ended up putting that one group of snowflakes. Here I'm just placing the little, I'm looking at it as if it were an ornament, the little heart shape with the snowflake. So I decided that would also go on the upper left-hand corner there, just as I did with the previous tag. Because although it's big, it is dainty enough that it's okay to layer it. And then I initially thought I'd put that big snowflake on the upper right-hand corner. I did not like it. I thought maybe on the ribbon, did not like that. And then I decided for the bottom. So because I moved it there, I just took off the the one I had previously placed, and then replaced it with that larger snowflake cluster. And this is where I wish I had given it more thought, because I now have a grouping of 4 snowflakes, and I would have done things a little bit differently had I thought of it ahead of time. But nonetheless, I decided to place that larger snowflake there on the bottom left, and then moved the other grouping to the top. So it's basically like a gradient of color from top to bottom, where I have my lighter blues on the top and the darker ones on the bottom. And that was just coincidental, but it's okay. And here I was just explaining when I previously recorded this that I had those 3 snowflakes going on the right hand side of my tag there, so that I wasn't very happy about that. And then I thought to place those tiny bitty ones throughout, but then I realized I had enough elements on this tag to where I didn't believe I needed them. So what I did was to make it all cohesive. I added more of the the silver ribbon, here on the top right hand corner of the tag onto the backing, and then on the bottom left hand corner, as you see there, I applied that with the glitter glue. So I wanted to have that little trim back there just to give it a little bit of a silver throughout. And then everything that you see in red is actually Ranger stickles in Christmas red. And then the centers of the snowflakes, I used these little gems that my friend Nati gave me in a really sweet rack. So thank you, Nati, for that. It allowed me to finish out all of the centers of the snowflakes. And then I'm just pointing out how I also decided to add some of the stickles to the clock, the outfit, and then every single little bead there that you see is a little drop of the red stickles that I added all around to just give it a pop of color and make it stand out a little more, make it more Christmassy, and that is the Ranger Christmas Red stickles. So hopefully you guys have liked this project, and I do apologize for my voice, and I hope that you have been inspired, and maybe you will try your own Christmas tag. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at paintsandglitter@gmail.com. As I always say, I'm always available for any questions you may have, and I hope that this has been enjoyable for you and that you can be inspired and be blessed. Take care, and thank you so much for watching.